The spiritual path is filled with an irony that the human intellect struggles to comprehend. The mind enters the arena of self-inquiry with an agenda of acquisition. It treats enlightenment, liberation, or realization as the ultimate trophy, a final, supreme state of happiness that it can add to its collection of life achievements. The mind asks, how can I attain bliss? What will happen to me when I merge into the absolute? Will I be there to feel the joy of my own liberation? This line of questioning reveals the structural core of the egoic mechanism. The ego is, by definition, a boundary-making machine. It survives entirely by dividing reality into two distinct camps: the subject, I, and the object, the world, God, or bliss. It operates on the deep-seated assumption that any experience requires a separate entity to possess it. If there is a beautiful sunset, there must be a me who looks at it. If there is wealth, there must be a me who owns it. Naturally, when the mind encounters the concept of spiritual bliss, Ananda, it immediately applies the same transactional logic. It wants to stand outside of bliss, look at it, grasp it, and declare, "This bliss belongs to me." But the ultimate reality of non-duality, Advaita, does not enter into contracts with the separate self. It does not offer a state of happiness that can be possessed by an individual. When the mind undergoes the process of merging with pure consciousness, it does not walk into a room called bliss and sit down to enjoy the scenery. Rather, the very boundary that allowed the mind to consider itself a separate entity collapses entirely. To ask whether the mind or consciousness experiences the bliss in the state of unity is to misunderstand the very definition of merging. If a drop of water falls from the sky and touches the surface of a vast lake, we cannot ask, does the drop experience the lake, or does the lake experience the drop? The very moment contact is made, the category of the drop ceases to have any functional reality. Its name, its distinct boundary, its isolated temperature, and its separate trajectory are instantly extinguished. Only the lake remains. In exactly the same manner, when the mind returns to its source, the tool of separation is dissolved. The mind cannot experience the bliss of unity because the mind's existence is the state of disunity. To understand the nature of non-dual realization, we must dissect how ordinary experience functions and contrast it with the absolute state. In our daily lives, our experiences are entirely relative and dualistic. This is known as the subject-object split. In this dualistic matrix, happiness is always conditional, fleeting, and dependent on an external trigger. If you receive good news, your mind experiences a temporary surge of joy. The mind immediately misinterprets this event, believing that the joy came from the good news itself. But a deeper examination reveals a completely different mechanism. What actually happens when a desire is fulfilled? For a split second, the frantic seeking movement of the mind comes to a dead stop. The mind temporarily stops reaching outward, stops wanting, and stops projecting. In that microsecond of absolute mental stillness, the underlying light of pure consciousness shines through without obstruction. The happiness you feel is not caused by the object you acquired. It is the raw, unadulterated flavor of your own true nature, which was temporarily uncovered because the mind quieted down. However, because the mind is conditioned by ignorance, it immediately creates a false narrative. It assumes that the object was the source of the pleasure, and it instantly sets out to acquire more objects, thereby restarting the cycle of desire, anxiety, and brief relief. The mind spends its entire existence chasing reflections of light in external objects, completely unaware that it is the projector of that very light. When the mind merges with consciousness permanently, this entire relative architecture collapses. The subject-object split is erased. Consciousness does not look outward at bliss as if it were an independent phenomenon, a beautiful emotional weather pattern, or a spiritual reward. Bliss is not an attribute of consciousness. It is the very substance of consciousness. Just as sweetness is not a separate property that a grain of sugar possesses but is the very reality of the sugar itself, so too is bliss the undeniable, non-dual texture of pure awareness. In this state of complete resolution, there is no longer a localized observer saying, "I am happy." Instead, bliss experiences itself through the complete absence of a separate self. The ancient rishis and sages of the Upanishads wrestled with the limitations of human language when attempting to describe this ultimate state of realization. How do you use words, which are designed entirely to navigate the world of separate objects, to describe a reality that is absolutely one, undivided, and formless? To bridge this gap, they formulated the supreme linguistic pointer, Sat Chidananada. This compound Sanskrit term is frequently translated into English as truth consciousness bliss or existence awareness joy. However, in translation, the Western mind often mistakes these for three distinct qualities or characteristics that are combined within the absolute reality, as if Brahman were an entity that happens to be simultaneously real, intelligent, and happy. This is a profound error. Sat, Chit, and Ananda are not three separate pillars supporting a roof. They are three distinct conceptual entry points designed to point to the exact same, seamless, indivisible reality. Sat, absolute existence. This refers to that which never changes, has no beginning, has no end, and is completely independent of time, space, and causation. It is the fundamental ground of reality. It is that which cannot be negated. You can doubt the existence of the world, you can doubt the accuracy of your thoughts, but you cannot doubt the fact that something exists. That irreducible baseline fact of pure existence is Sat, Chit, pure consciousness. This is the self-luminous light of awareness that allows existence to be known. It is not a product of the brain. It is not a biological phenomenon that emerged at a certain point in evolution. It is the primary space within which all concepts of brains, evolution, and worlds arise. It requires no external instrument to illuminate it. Just as the sun does not require a flashlight to prove its presence in the sky, Chit is entirely self-evident, self-shining, and self-knowing. Ananda, limitless bliss. This is the absolute freedom that arises when there are no boundaries, no limitations, and no sense of lack. Ananda is not the emotional opposite of sadness. Emotional happiness is temporary and always carries the shadow of its inevitable decay. Ananda, conversely, is the deep, immutable peace of absolute wholeness. It is the joy of being completely full, purna, containing all things within oneself and lacking absolutely nothing. The profound revelation of Advaita Vedanta is that Sat is Chit and Chit is Ananda. They are completely identical. Your fundamental existence, Sat, is not a cold, dead piece of matter. It is alive with pure, luminous awareness, Chit. And that pure, luminous awareness is not a neutral, clinical computer monitor registering data. Its very nature is absolute, unconditional, boundaryless bliss, Ananda. When the localized mind, the small, anxious wave, finally surrenders its separate configuration and sinks back into the depths of this absolute reality, it doesn't lose anything. It simply sheds the illusion of limitation. The wave disappears, but the water recognizes itself as the entire eternal, unblemished ocean. To understand how the mind operates within the field of non-dual consciousness, we must move past the Western Cartesian dualism that splits reality rigidly into mind and matter. Eastern psychology, particularly within the frameworks of yoga and Vedanta, views the universe as a continuous spectrum of energy vibrating at different frequencies. In this holistic system, the mind is not an abstract, non-physical ghost inside a biological machine. It is a highly sophisticated, dynamic, and fluid energy field. It is a subtle form of matter, whereas the physical body is a gross form of mind. To unpack the subtle anatomy of this mental energy field, we look at the interaction of two chitta, the mind stuff. Think of chitta as the fundamental mental substrate or substance. It is the unformed psychological pool or canvas that holds all our memories, subconscious impressions, latent desires, and tendencies, samskaras. On its own, chitta is like a perfectly still body of clear water. It contains infinite potential for shapes and forms, but left to itself, it is passive. Prana, the vital life force. Prana is the active, kinetic energy of the cosmos. It is the force that drives all movement, from the spinning of galaxies to the respiratory cycles of a living organism. Prana acts as the wind that blows across the still water of chitta. The moment the wind of prana moves across the water of chitta, ripples are formed. In Sanskrit, these ripples are called vrittis. A vritti is a thought wave, a momentary modification of the mental energy field. When a vritti arises, it can take the shape of an emotion, a memory, a logical deduction, or a sensory perception. When you look at a tree, your mental energy field physically projects itself out, wraps around the form of the tree, and modifies its own substance into the shape of that tree. The mind does not contain real trees. It contains vrittis, vibrational energy packets shaped like trees. Therefore, your entire experience of the world is not a direct interaction with physical matter, but an internal observation of the shifting ripples within your own personal energy field. This ancient description of the mind as an energetic field maps with remarkable precision onto the cutting-edge discoveries of modern neuroscience. For decades, traditional materialistic science attempted to find the exact location of a thought inside the brain. Neurologists hunted for memories inside specific clusters of cells, assuming that thoughts were static things stored like files on a computer hard drive. Modern neurodynamics has shattered this localized view. Today, science understands that what we call the mind is an emergent property of the brain's complex, interconnected neural networks. When you think, feel, or remember, billions of neurons fire in synchronized harmony across vast distances inside the cranium. This massive collective firing of biological electricity generates rhythmic electromagnetic fields. These fields are what medicine measures on the scalp using electroencephalography, EEG, categorizing them into distinct brainwave frequencies: gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. When your brain waves drop from the chaotic, high-frequency rhythms of beta into the deep, coherent valleys of theta and delta during meditation, the architecture of your electromagnetic field shifts.